Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight on our news.
Severe damage left behind by Hurricane Matthew. The Prime Minister gives an overview of what his government is doing in the aftermath of the storm. That story straight ahead.
Now here in Adelaide Village, a pretty strange occurrence. During the storm, somehow a casket made its way out of the grave.
Our news gets reports from the southern region of New Providence following the aftermath of Matthew. That's coming up straight ahead.
Hurricane Matthew wreaks havoc on Grand Bahama Island. We have the details straight ahead.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us for this special edition After Matthew. I'm Christina McNeil. Topping news tonight, the country begins to pick up the pieces in the aftermath of Hurricane Matthew. Prime Minister Perry Christie, his cabinet and officials from the Met Department, National Emergency Management Agency and others gathered at NEMA's headquarters this morning to begin the assessment and restoration phase. Christie told reporters severe damage as well as one death has been reported in the aftermath of the storm, which may hit the Bahamas again. Dana Smith reports.
Hurricane Matthew left behind severe damage, with homes destroyed, trees flattened, and utility poles damaged. A death was even reported during the storm. Prime Minister Perry Christie said the government is now in the assessment phase in the aftermath of Hurricane Matthew, and he warned the storm could loop back around and strike the Bahamas once more as a tropical storm. The damage left behind by Matthew can be seen across New Providence, with fallen trees blocking the roads and stagnant floodwater in many low-lying areas. Christie said Matthew had a minimal impact on the islands in the south, which just last year suffered severely as a result of Hurricane Joaquin. But Matthew had a strong impact on New Providence and a tremendous impact on Andros and Grand Bahama.
The representative for Western and Bimini has indicated to us there have been a loss of homes. Quite a number of homes have been destroyed. Many have been damaged, and so there is significant loss in the Western community.
The United States Coast Guard has stepped in to assist. Christie was set to leave on a Coast Guard helicopter this afternoon to take a look at the damage in West End and Freeport. The Prime Minister also confirmed a death in Andros, but he said it's still too early to say whether the death is directly related to the storm.
The Minister of Health has indicated to us that someone was flown in from Andros with a heart attack patient. That patient has died. Some people believe it's attributable to the hurricane. We have to really find out from the doctors what is it attributable to, and therefore I cautiously indicate that story.
And although assessment and restoration efforts are underway, the Bahamas isn't out of the woods yet. Forecasters are predicting Matthew could in fact make a circle and loop back around and hit the Bahamas once more.
And the bottom line is that yes, it in probability will loop, that insofar as danger and safety is concerned, it will not be hurricane force winds. It will be tropical force winds, which would be between 39 and say 75 miles an hour wind, which is so significant. That will come in by next Wednesday, if it does come, into the Abacos, into the northern Bahamas. And that northern Bahamas would really mean that it will touch Grand Bahama, Bimini, Abaco, New Providence, and possibly a bit of Eleuthera and a bit of Andros.
Officials continue to work to clear up debris in the road and restore damaged infrastructure. Christie said although the Ministry of the Environment and the Ministry of Works have a budget for the maintenance and cleanup of the islands, that budget did not take into consideration hurricane impact, and so a special fund is being created by government to address that issue.
If we continued with the usual budgetary allocations, we're going to have to reduce the capacity of various ministries from whom monies will be taken. So what we have decided to do is to explore immediately creating a hurricane fund that we would invite the commercial banks to participate in and have that segregated from the government expenditure so we could be accountable for that fund being directed to relief for Matthew.
The Prime Minister said the government continues to work and it will do all it can to assist Bahamians in the aftermath of the storm. For Our News, I'm Dana Smith.
Thanks, Dana. We also want to note that the Lynden Pinling International Airport will reopen tomorrow, Saturday, October 8th. The Nassau Airport Development Company has encouraged anyone traveling to contact their respective airlines for flight updates. Well, for many living in western New Providence, flooding was a major problem. In addition to storm surges, trees destroyed roofs, gates were torn down, and storage trailers flipped over. Kyle Joaquin tells us more.
Okay, Christina, I'm standing in Coral Harbor, not far from the southern shore of the island. And as you can see, Matthew clearly had his way in this area. We have downed coconut trees, water, and more water. If you look this way, massive flooding, all left behind by the Category 4 Hurricane Matthew. From above, the Coral Harbor area looks like one big pond with water flowing all through. Matthew ripped through the area, dragging water, snapping trees, and downing lamp poles, putting power lines on the ground. The home of Leo Rogers was surrounded by water. It got a little roof damage and a bit of flooding.
This is the first time I actually evacuated. I knew there was going to be, water level rising, but based on the information I received, I thought it fitting to get out of the area, and that's exactly what I did. Now, coming back, I was really expecting it to be a whole lot worse, but, I can deal with this.
Right next door was Joy Swain. Her furniture was outside drying.
We got a bit of flooding inside the rooms. Also, the roof. You see extensive damage. Flooding, the gates.
Yeah, the gates. I mean, you would have never guessed that the gates would have been broken over here.
Yeah, it's not just one, it's 3 of them that's really damaged.
But across the pond from that, a trailer caught in a downed power line and laying on a Dodge Jeep.
Just took the trailer off my Jeep on my boat. The wind just blew the trailer completely on my Jeep on my boat, screw up my Jeep on my boat.
Right. This is your house over here?
This is my sister's house. Everything is all messed up.
Inside? A lot of flood damage.
Oh yeah, straight through.
The 2 men on this roof were in the process of assisting their aunt. This tree fell during the storm with a huge branch going straight through her roof. She was too emotional at the time to speak. Now here in Adelaide Village, it's a pretty strange occurrence. During the storm, if you look just behind me, a casket somehow came out of the grave. The casket, tucked near the wall of Adelaide Graveyard, feet away from where this woman believes they buried her loved one.
That's my godmother. But I remember them putting her on top of her mother or daddy, one of them anyhow. But they did put this same thing back over it, like they covered it.
And
back.
this is full of water.
Yeah, it's full of water.
On our way to Clifton, we ran into this truck stuck in water. And when we finally got to BPL, workers were removing barrels out of the road. Trees and other equipment thrown all around. But with all the people we spoke to today, they all agreed on one thing. They're all just grateful to be alive.
My home is not flooded. I have roof damage, but I'm good.
But there's a lot of flooding around here.
Yeah, because of the pond.
Did you spend the storm here?
No, I didn't. I came back this morning.
Everything is okay aside from your roof?
Everything is okay. We still got life.
Now, in the midst of all this destruction, still blowing in the wind, a torn Bahamian flag, what some would say is a symbol of the nation's resilience. Reporting from Coral Harbor for Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Well, residents of Marshall Road and South Beach were hit hard by storm surges of up to 12 feet when Hurricane Matthew passed over New Providence. Today, our Giorgio Sturb visited those areas to see how they held up. Here's her report.
This is a familiar scene, especially in the South Beach and Marshall Road area, where some residents are complaining of about 4 to 6 feet of water on the inside of their homes. Here at the Miracle Faith Praying Station, everything is left on the outside, hoping to be dried and salvaged, while everything inside of the church was completely destroyed. Apostle Larry Camp was in complete dismay this morning as he opened his church door and was able to see straight through to the outside. The roof collapsed, drenching everything on the inside. Camp says he has never seen anything like this before in his life.
The water had came at least about 3 feet, 4 feet inside. Of course, it came from the south, came through the wall, knock all that wall area out and just basically flush the building. And the water definitely was powerful, and it did a lot of damage. It took the sound system, demolished the pulpit area, the drums, the keyboard, everything was basically demolished.
And an emotional scene over in Marshall Road as Winifred Meadows recalled how she and her pregnant daughter had to abandon their home in the middle of the storm after the roof was blown off. Seawater began to rise past the windows in her home, but she says she's grateful for life.
The water was up here. When I said about my daughter called me. She said, Mommy, come on, let's go. And I take a little while before I come out, because I still didn't make up my mind yet to really, go. And then I, really think about it. I say, remember, she said, let's go. And when I did turn around to go, my boyfriend said, come on, Winnie, let's go. And when I put my foot out of my door, my daughter was pregnant. She was to the door screaming. I had to get her out too before me,
And further south, Clinton Fernandez suffered 4 feet of flood damage and had fish swimming on the inside of his home. To make matters worse, he said 2 coconut trees fell on his roof.
We had a lot of water coming in from the beach, and we had, we could even find some fishes too around the house and stuff. We had, in the bog there they had but 7 foot of water in the bog there. My sister there, it's my sister, yeah, and it being a lot of damage.
Meantime, Olena Meadows, who received damage to her home and vehicle, says she's happy she went to a local church for shelter because she may not have been alive today.
It come up, and some. And here, it had all the leaves, and they are soaking in. So I just want to sweeping it up.
As they begin to pick up the pieces, residents say they await help from their member of parliament. Reporting for our news, I'm Georgia Stirrup.
Hours after Hurricane Matthew ripped through New Providence on Thursday, Matthew gained strength as it set out on the path to Grand Bahama. Residents on that island took to social media to share videos, photos, and posts as a Category 4 hurricane barreled down. Simone Davis reports.
Dubbed the most dangerous and unpredictable storm in decades, Hurricane Matthew left its mark on several islands throughout the Bahamas, with Grand Bahama being the last island to feel its wrath.
Hurricane Matthew wreaked havoc on Grand Bahama as it strengthened to a Category 4 storm late Thursday night and early Friday morning. Phone lines were down and electricity was shut off as residents hurried to social media in an attempt to stay in touch with family members. The island sustained significant damage in 8 Mile Rock, Holmes's Rock, and West End. Residents shared these graphic photos and videos of the destruction Hurricane Matthew left behind. One resident shared this video of West Grand Bahama, which is still currently experiencing significant flooding.
This is the current state of it. That water is coming up. So let me tell you, if you're trying to get to 8 Mile Rock, I suggest that you make a move now. It is still open, but again, only the police have the authority to close the road.
Other residents shared posts hoping for the best as they were not able to reach their loved ones after the storm. Attempts to reach several residents were unsuccessful as phone lines were still down on parts of Grand Bahama. Grand Bahama has seen several hurricanes with the strength of Matthew in the past. The island was still recovering from the wrath of Hurricane Francis back in 2004, a Category 4 storm that demolished landmarks, homes, and more. That hurricane was immediately followed by Hurricane Jean, which brought similar force to the island.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, phone lines in Grand Bahama are still down today and airports are closed. But our news team will continue efforts to get in contact with as many residents as possible, and we will be keeping you updated on their progress. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks, Simone. Meanwhile, Bahamas Power and Light has begun restoring electricity to residents of New Providence as residents are assessing the damage to their homes and businesses. Customers who receive power through underground transmission and distribution lines will likely have their power restored first, according to a statement released this morning. Restoring power to customers who are connected to overhead lines will take significantly longer, as BPL notes considerable damage to its overhead distribution network on New Providence. Service has already been restored to Doctors Hospital and the Princess Margaret Hospital, as well as customers in Eastwood and some parts of downtown Nassau. According to BPL, substations at Big Pond, Soldier Road, Wolf Road, Paradise Island A and B, East Hill Street, and Blue Hill Road. Communications manager Arnett Wilson Ingram says crews are working around the clock, but it will be a long-term process. She says some areas will see their power restored as early as tonight, and some will not have power restored until sometime next week. She says the company is sensitive to these issues and will work diligently 16 hours a day from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day until restoration is complete. Well, Cable Bahama's Chief Operating Officer John Gomez giving an update on Cable Bahama services throughout the country. Gomez says systems and networks in the southern islands fared well considering Matthew's strength, and crews are preparing to fly out to complete repairs now that airports are open. Gomez says early reports coming in from other areas including Nicholstown and Fresh Creek Andros, Exuma, San Salvador, Inagua, and Long Island are being assessed for network damage and service restoration where applicable. Gomez says New Providence teams were set in motion beginning on Wednesday for monitoring and are now assessing. He says customers throughout the country are experiencing outages primarily related to power interruptions and downed distribution lines that are impacted by falling trees. He says gusting winds, which blew rain, salt, sand, and debris around, will have varying effects on the company's systems. By Friday morning, as Hurricane Matthew was moving away from the central Bahamas, cable technical teams were allowed to survey neighborhoods on New Providence, assessing safety and network issues prior to network restoration activities beginning once the all-clear was given by NEMA. Gomez says teams are now working to restore cable services throughout New Providence. Still to come on our news, long lines of frustration as people seek to fill their fuel tanks. The Ministry of Tourism begins damage assessments throughout the Bahamas. Plus, foreign aid agencies are on call to bring relief to the Bahamas. That's coming up when our news returns.